Hello. Welcome to another episode of Chucky Radio. This episode, I am back to one of my favorite islands down in Mexico, off the Yucatan. I don't know. I just keep getting drawn back to this island. It's nuts. So in this episode, I actually did the trip with one of my favorite people in the world. This episode is going to be the trip to Holbox with my buddy. Oh shit. What did I call you?
My buddy, oh shit, that's good.
Pause.
Wow, what a fantastic intro. I have to say that was the best intro I've ever had.
With my buddy, Mr. Kayvan Mashayekh, a.k.a. the Preacher. Welcome to Chucky Radio. All right, so we are here actually calling in from Mexico at this moment. Kayvan, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be on your show and your podcast, and I'm very excited to be participating in this episode because you are a dear friend and a colleague that I've started out as a colleague 16 years ago, and it turned out into a beautiful friendship. I know. So I'm very, very excited.
It is. It's nuts. I mean, honestly, it's like, I can't believe it's been 16 years. And we were introduced by another amazing guy, Alfred Cervantes, who's the director of the Houston Film Commission. And he had told me I was in the process of getting involved in film distribution. And he said, hey, there's this guy. He's got this beautiful film. He's looking for distribution. He wants to play it in theaters. That's kind of where my interest lied. And you and I met, and instantly we totally saw the vision.
And also, I'd like to, bring your audience's attention to the fact that I immediately was drawn to your energy and your enthusiasm and your professionalism and your focus on trying to do something in a collaborative way to achieve a result that was going to be something that was going to be sustainable over the long term. And the fact that we had this amazing kind of click from the very beginning due to our introduction through Alfred just shows, this whole power of connectivity within individuals that are trustworthy, that have mutual friends and mutual connections. And so a lot of kudos goes to Alfred, our dear friend, our dear mutual friend, for putting us together. But one of the things I also want to elaborate on is the fact that I have never in my life entered into an agreement without a piece of paper and a signature. But Chucky and I were able to maintain a 53-week professional relationship, even though there was an actual contract that was drawn up. We never signed it. We actually had a handshake deal. And it was one of the most unique things that anybody could ever, dream of.
Yeah.
Because we were so in sync with one another, so trusting of one another that it was a magical experience. So I have to thank you for so honorable and so great, because that kind of stuff is just old school. It goes back, to the old way of doing business, where people just a handshake was good enough. Your word is your bond, and that was was amazing.
I think that there's a whole nother episode about our experience with your film, with The Keeper, The Legend of Omar Khayyam, what we went through, the accomplishments we had. I mean, honestly, that is an entire episode, and I want to do that with you.
Yeah.
Today, I want to talk about what we just went through. One of the places that is like my special place. I was just there a month ago. And in fact, when I was there a month ago, I met someone really special. And of course, I'm posting photos. Kayvan, you've been kind of cooped up in Houston for a while because of COVID. and you were itching to get out, and you kept asking me, "Where are you? What are you doing? How do I get there? I want to go."
It's so true. All true. Yeah, all true. You basically have Instagram envy when you see your friends having so much fun in magical tropical places that you've never seen before and you've dreamed about. Stuff that you see in magazines, and next thing you know, I'm like, I need to be there. So I'm ready to go. How do I sign up?
And you were like, okay, Charles, like, how do I get there? Is it safe? Just starting to kind of
Yeah,
go through the
because
gamut of, yeah, it's Mexico. And, I
yeah, and
mean,
and also is you also understand it's like usually it's fun to go take trips with your friends, but none of my
right.
friends could go. Fortunately, I'd just been vaccinated, so I was itching to get on a plane to go somewhere and just feel a little bit more liberated about international travel. And so, and this was such a close destination to Houston, 2-hour flights that
And the
I
Mash
wanted to do it.
Man, our international friend who's all over the map usually. I mean, you're in Europe half the year, you're in California. I mean, it was interesting because we had ran into each other. We met up a few times because you ended up in Houston where most of your family is, and you kind of ended up locking down there. And
Yeah, because
so,
for the past year I've been taking care of my mom, who's an elderly lady who's and we're just my brother and I are very very cognizant of our duties as sons, and
yeah,
we're very very careful with mom. So we had to. So I've been there for the past year, just kind of taking care of my mom.
such
So
good sons. That's just very admirable, and that's just a testament to the kind of person you are. And
it's
so when you were like, okay, mom's taking care of, your brother was helping, you're going to escape, and you were asking me all these questions about Holbox. I've got extra vacation time because our vacation time to the company I work with expires at the end of the first quarter for last year because I didn't get to use them all last year because we barely got to travel, right? And I just said, you know what, Kayvan, I'll just go with you. And I tell you what, man, I was just laughing because I just kept getting text messages from you like, dude, I can't wait till we go on this trip. Dude,
Oh yeah,
you were
I
just
was itching. Yeah, I mean, I was like a little kid in the candy. I was like a little kid the night before Christmas. When can I open the gift? When can I
when are we
open the
going?
gift?
This trip can't come soon enough.
It just could not come soon enough. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so you decided to leave a few days early. And on my advice, I like go to Tulum. It's a little crazy down there, but
Uh,
it's worth the trip. It's worth checking out. You found out you had a friend down there, and you ended up
uh,
spending what, like 2 or 3 nights in
I
Tulum?
was I was in Tulum for 3 nights, and fortunately, the funny thing is, the ex girlfriend of one of my dearest friends in the world happens to live there in Tulum, and I've known her for 8 years, and she was so kind enough to start showing me around, like telling me where to go and what to do, and kind of taking me by the hand and making sure that I was seeing the right things in the right places. And
And you
because
had never
Tulum can
been to
be
Tulum
because
before, right?
I'd never been there before, and Tulum can be overwhelming because unless everybody goes there for whatever reason they want to go there for. I mean,
Right.
there's the party scene, there's the chill out scene, there's the
Yoga.
scene where the jungle scene, there's the beach scene, there's so many different scenes and the types of people that are here. It could be a little overwhelming. So when you're here only for 72 hours, you want to try to focus on the things that interest you the most. And that was it. And it was my first time, so you're kind of the virgin in this territory.
And it sounds
And
like you ended up having a great guide who I ended up getting to know, and she is just a wonderful, beautiful person.
Yeah, and she's like a sister, so it's really nice, and it's very very I was very fortunate to have her to start the trip. And then all of a sudden I said, listen, I've got to go meet my buddy Chucky on Wednesday in Holbox, and so I'm only here for 3 days. And if you want to come, feel free, because he's a really cool guy, and if the more the merrier. We could be like the three amigos type thing." And she's like, "Sure." So she basically dropped everything, and she got us her driver. Because
That's
she's
awesome.
connected over here all over, and next thing you know, we got a driver, and we're meeting up with Chucky and Holbush. And the ironic thing is we both arrived at the same
At the
time.
exact same
the,
time.
the synchronicity, the
Right.
synchronicity of that was just
The
magical.
whole trip. I mean, the whole trip.
Yeah,
We were
all of it.
just all in sync and everything just flowed so well. And I flew into Cancun as I usually do. And I had planned to meet you, but then you already had everything arranged because your friend, she's, like you said, well
Yeah,
connected and got you guys a great deal on a driver to take
yeah,
you all the way to the fishing village,
yeah,
Chiquila, where you have to
yeah,
catch the ferry. And so
yeah.
I had my guy pick me up at the airport in Cancun and then take me over. And yeah, I mean, it's a 2 hour drive from Cancun. I think it was like 2.5 hours for you guys. And somehow we ended up literally, I'm getting out of my car and you had just gotten out of yours. And I look over and I'm like, there's Kayvon walking down
Yeah,
the street in this fishing
exactly.
village. And I'm like,
Exactly.
hey, Kayvon. And you like, look at me
I,
like,
I was like, "Who's calling me?" I was like, I didn't even because you're all masked up and stuff, and I was like, "Who is that dude?" Oh, Charles. Jeez.
and so we take the ferry over. We get to Holbox, this hotel that I've been fortunate to get great deals at. This was actually my third time to stay there. It worked out to be a perfect location for us. We're right in the center of the beach city, like right on the edge of the city, center of the beach area. So we kind of have access to all the restaurants and bars in the city, but we're right there where we can head one direction and catch one beach scene, head the other direction, go catch the sunset scene. And so that turned out to be a good spot for us because we had kind of debated where we're staying. And at one point we were going to stay in different hotels. And it worked out great that we were all right there at the same hotel.
Yep.
So one of the things I love, this was my sixth time to go to Holbox. So I've gotten to know the island. I know a few people there, and I just kind of knew here are the cool things to do. And the thing I loved about you, Kayvon, is you just went with the flow. You just went for the Chucky travel tour. You were like, didn't have to, plan anything because I already had a vision of like, I want Kayvon to experience these things. And so, we were pretty chill. We got there, we chilled for a day. And then that second full day we were there, I had set up to do the catamaran cruise. What did you think about
Yeah, I
that?
mean, listen, I mean, one of the great things about traveling with you is like having the experience of professionally having an experience with you is like when you put stuff in Charles's hands and as the organizer, you just have to like sit back in the back seat, kick your feet up because he takes care of every detail. I mean,
I had the
it is
music lined up for the boat. I had the
yeah.
freaking beers lined up. I had like,
Yeah, it's unquestionably perfect, and that's the great thing is traveling with somebody where you don't have to do the thinking; the thinking's done for you, and those are the best types of vacations because it relieves so much, stress of trying to figure out what to do, where to go, where to eat, how to. All the how tos, you've got your own personal concierge. So basically, when you travel with Charles, he is your concierge. You don't need a concierge. You don't need anything. He's everything. He's like a one man show. He's an organizer. He's like, yeah, he's everything. He's
I
just
mean,
a,
I mean, it's just, the way I see it is if I came to your town, when I come to LA, you're like, we're going to this restaurant. Oh, we've got this
yeah,
bar. I know the owner here. It's just like, I mean, that's the way I feel about Holbox. It's like, this is my island. This is my town. I know what to do. Just trust me. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
But this, this goes to the strength of the friendship over time
Yeah.
because you can only do that with people you trust. A lot of times, you have to understand with friendships is like if you don't have that level of trust, people will question every single move you do,
Right.
and they will. And also, you have to know your friend. So
Right.
there has to be a way in which there's a symbiotic relationship where, when you place yourself in somebody's hands, you don't have to question it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's a back and forth, and it could disrupt things. And you don't want to be this person that is constantly trying to figure out whether or not what your friend is doing is the thing the other person likes or not doesn't like.
Right.
Jeez, that's just it.
Well,
I mean,
and it's kind of like the testament of us knowing each other for 16 years and have
yeah,
traveled together. And we've
yeah,
done,
that's it. That's it.
we've done it professionally. This is actually the first time we've ever vacationed together.
Exactly, exactly. So what I'm saying to you is, if you've done it professionally,
Right.
the thing when it comes to the friendship thing, it's just a breeze then, because you
Right.
already know the person's limitations, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know their vibe, you know their ups, their downs, their moodiness. These are so important. If you ever want to know your friend, go on a trip for 48 hours. You may know somebody for umpteen years, but you take a trip with your friend for 48 hours. If you can tolerate that friend after 48 hours, then you're solid. You're on solid footing. You're not in marshland.
I think that
You
goes
know.
for any relationship, right? I mean, even
True.
with
Absolutely.
friends
I
or if you
mean,
start dating someone, I mean, if you go on a trip,
yeah. My advice always is like, if you like somebody, or you're starting to date somebody, or you've gone on 1 or 2, 3 dates, say, listen, I want to be very upfront. I think we should take a trip together. Because if you have any kind of like hope of a future with somebody, you want to definitely see how they are
right.
in an environment where you have to think together, you have to trust one another,
Yeah.
you have to see their ups, their downs. That these are things that are very important and critical as relationships develop into something more mature and much more meaningful over time.
Hmm.
Of course, that's on a more, how do I put it?
Like a
Per,
deeper, more,
yeah, a deeper, man woman relationship
right.
type thing, or whatever, or couple thing, however you are, in relation to the person that you're involved with romantically, so to speak.
Right.
But but in a friendship thing also, so it applies everywhere, as you said correctly. It applies in business. It applies in personal relationships, and in romantic things, whatever. Because it's a question of expectations, tolerance, respect, space,
Yeah.
trust, and how and also how you can collaborate to create an environment where you feel like, okay, we can do this, we can communicate
Yeah. No.
communicate
And here's a cool thing. And, it's funny because we're talking about like doing this as friends, but we're also talking about how it can test developing relationships, someone you're dating, a romantic deal. But I kind of see like, I mean, at least in this case, I love to share beauty with my friends too. And that was part of like this, when and you like completely trusted me. And I'm like, Kayvan, we're going to charter this catamaran. We're doing a private charter. It's going to cost X amount. You're going to enjoy it. And you just completely had confidence in me. And we get out there and we're on the ocean and we're under the power of the wind and the sun's going down and it's just so beautiful. And I mean, you could consider it a romantic type of scenario, but I also consider it just living life, just feeling connected to the wind and the ocean and just the gorgeous sunset. And we had super cool people with us. I invited, Laura and her boyfriend, she's an amazing yoga instructor in Holbox.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the power of nature, and when you have the sun, the water, the sea. I mean, everything, all of that gives so much life and affirmation about, the things that God's created in our world that are so simple. I mean, and we embrace it, and
Yeah.
embrace it in its totality, because it's those
Connects
simple joys
us.
and those simple joys and those pleasures that really, bring equilibrium to
Mm-hmm.
us, especially in times of trouble, where, like this world we're living in now, where there's so much uncertainty and there's so much chaos.
Mm-hmm.
the simple things like that, it really they bring out the best in you. I mean, if that doesn't bring out the best in you, I don't know what
Exactly.
could possibly.
And talking about bringing out the best in us, one of the things that happened on that trip after we had gone and watched the sunset and we're sailing back, and all of a sudden we see these people on paddle boards and they were far away
Right.
from the shore and there was still a really good wind. And you could see they were struggling and they were fighting and they were trying to paddle back towards the shore and they weren't making any headway. And the captain, he turns to me and he's like, "Hey, I think these guys are in trouble." And I'm like, "Really? Are you sure?" I kind of watched them for a minute. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh crap, they really are in trouble. And so I turned to Victor, our captain, amazing guy. And I'm like, you're absolutely right, Victor. Let's go help them. And he just immediately turned the boat. We went right towards them. And it was just this lovely couple and they were totally struggling. And, we pulled their paddle boards up on the boat and they got on the boat. And it was just so cool. These poor people went from, legitimately being scared out in the open ocean to all of a sudden cruising on this beautiful catamaran with this cool group of people, and we're playing music and we're singing songs. And it was just special because we ended up seeing them a couple nights later at the little full moon get together that they had at one of these bars. And at one point, your friend saw the girl. It's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the guys that were out on the paddleboards." It's like, "Oh," and then the boyfriend turns around, it's like, "Chucky, Kayvan," they were all so happy to see us. That was so cool.
That was pretty cool.
So it brings out the best in people to just be connected to nature and to be, just in touch with humanity. It felt like.
Absolutely.
So the big trip that we did, and this is something that was kind of special for me because I'd never done it. So I've chartered the catamaran before. I took you guys at one point to go see Mosquito Point, where usually when the flamingos are migrating through, but it's still cool because it's a cool walk out there. It's along the sandbar. And so everything I'd done up to that point were things that I knew that I'd done before. But the guy who's my driver, turns out his family owns a boat, and he's like, "Hey, I'll cut you guys a deal to do a private tour to a place called Cabo Catoche."
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I was there in Holbox a month ago, and I think even I was there back in October of last year with some friends. In fact, I have an episode about that. I was with my friends Sarah and Jonna. And people had kept mentioning, you got to go to Cabo Catoche, but it's like an all-day deal to go out there, and you'd spend time out there and you come back. And so I finally, I trust the people who kept telling me. And then this guy, he says, "I can arrange it for you guys. I'll bring the boat." And so, I mentioned it to you and you were like, "Hey, Charles, whatever you recommend." And I'm like, "Okay, it's going to be a full day. We're going out first thing in the morning. We're not going to get back until coming into the evening." And you and your friend were totally on board. And so we go to the marina that morning. We get on the boat. We're cruising out. It's smooth sailing. And we had gotten a little bit later start than I think they had wanted us. And we discovered that the reason they like to get started really early is as it gets later, the wind picks up. And as the wind picks up, it gets a little bit more waves and a little bit more chop. And so we had almost a 2-hour boat ride that we got the crap beat out of us.
Completely. That was brutal.
I kept standing up because it was like every time that boat would hit those freaking waves, I could just feel the shock in my spine. I'm like, "Oh my God." But everybody was quiet. There was a certain zenness to it. But at the same time, every time we got that beating, it was just like, "Oh man." And then we get to Cabo Catoche. And then we realize, holy
It's a slice of paradise. I mean, it's totally paradise. I mean, it's the stuff that you see in movies that you're like, "No, this doesn't exist."
Right? it was gorgeous. I mean, we're pulling up and it's a point. So it's part of the whole Holbox natural preserve, but there's like a cut there and it's a point and there's a lighthouse. And then, we had to find like a place that we could dock because of the wind and the chop. So we ended up kind of tucking in behind some rocks. And as we're anchoring the boat and getting situated, we're just like seeing all these beautiful birds. I mean, just palm trees everywhere, virgin beaches out in front of this. And we're just like, holy cow. And so once, we got there and onto the shore, and they had offered to take us fishing, but if fishing out in the ocean was anything like the boat ride over there, we were like, yeah, I think we'll pass on going fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course they had anticipated, because they never know, fishing, you never know if you're going to catch fish or not. So they had anticipated, and they had brought some fresh caught fish that they had just gotten like the day before. And it was, fresh on ice. And they're like, okay, well, we have fish and we're going to get this prepared for you guys for lunch. And we're like, sure. And they're like, how do you guys want it? Like, we can do ceviche, we can grill it, you can, fry it, we can do all these different things. But we're like, you know what? It was that same thing. It's like, hey, you guys so far, you got us here. We trust you guys. You guys do it the way you feel is best. And then you, me, and your friend went for a walk down this amazing beach. And we're like taking photos and just walking forever. And we get back after maybe 45 minutes of walking up and down the beach. And these guys have an amazing meal prepared, like 2 tables full of fish.
Yeah.
It was something else, man. There was whole fried fish. There was grilled fish. There was fresh ceviche. Oh my God. I mean, it was a slice of heaven.
Yeah, it was definitely special.
And at one point I saw you just lay down after we ate, and you're like taking a siesta. I'm roaming around, making friends with the locals. There's a family there. So this little place that we were at, it's actually had been like a piece of the jungle they had cleared out. And they were pinning like chickens and turkeys and stuff in the back. So they were getting fresh eggs, and they had, fresh animals there to prepare meals with. They had hammocks there. I mean, and I found out they'd only been there for a year, so the guy I had ended up kind of making friends with, this guy, they called him Chincho. He was like giving me the tour. He showed me like they had this collection of coconuts. Okay. And so, we're surrounded by palm trees, right? And all these palm trees are full of coconuts. And so we could get them to like, hey, we want some fresh coconut water. They just right there in like 2 minutes would chop open a coconut, make a little hole in it, and just hand it to you. And like, here's a fresh coconut full of water, right? And so a lot of these coconuts they would collect in this, what your friend called the coconut graveyard. And it turns out that they use these things for, like when it gets bad with mosquitoes and stuff, they'll burn it to help get rid of the mosquitoes. They turn a lot of the half shells into cups and, dishware. It was just this really cool off the grid. I mean, no cell phone service, right?
Yeah.
It was great. We're completely disconnected. Like there's no internet, there's no cell phone service, there's no electricity. I mean, you're literally on a remote island.
Yeah, I mean, it's true from that perspective. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is kind of cool to be that disconnected, but yeah.
You were probably having
Yeah,
technology withdrawals, right?
yeah, I was having technology withdrawals, but it was worth it because you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the whole purpose of it anyway. So
Exactly.
you have to wait to do your posts later when you have Wi-Fi.
Our phones had batteries and we were able to take lots of pictures. I got video of Kayvan swinging between two palm trees.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
epic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was just great. It was just this beautiful afternoon. Great food, great company, just relaxing. And then, once we had chilled there for a while, we're like, okay, we're ready. We've been there, like 3 hours or so. And the boat ride back was a lot easier because we're going with the wind and with the waves. It was still a little rough, but it wasn't too bad. And then as we're coming back and to get to the marina where he had picked us up, we go by Passion Island. And, I'd been on there's like a 3-island tour where you hit Passion Island, Bird Island, and there's this little cenote they'll take you to. And so since we're on a private charter boat, we kind of called the shots and we're like, yeah, let's stop by Passion Island. Let's take a look. And you guys hadn't seen any of this. And so we pull up to Passion Island. And I mean, what was your impression?
My impression of that place was, well, I mean, if you're a person who loves nature and animals and bird watching, it's fascinating because you see all of it. You see, so much of that, the raw beauty of the landscape and how how it all works together in harmony. I love to
Right.
watch the birds dive in and get the fish. That was really,
Wasn't that awesome?
they do the dive bombing and get the fish. It's amazing.
So what's cool in the history behind Passion Island is actually the reason it's called Passion Islands because the locals, when they get married, that would be their, first wedding night. They would go to this little hut they had on the island, and that was the first time, that a man and wife would lay with each other. And so it was called Passion Island. And now it's kind of become more of a tourist attraction, and it's a bird sanctuary because there's this amazing number of species of birds in these islands. And so they had built this little tower so you could go like 3, almost 4 stories high, and you're overlooking the island and you're overlooking the ocean. And there was cranes that were nesting in the trees right there in the island. And then at one point, remember, we spotted that huge iguana, and we're just like, we're like, holy cow. It was like, I mean, it was like, we were at Jurassic Park almost, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So yeah, I don't know. This place is really special to me. And what was cool is that was literally our last day. It was Saturday. We're all leaving on Sunday. And that evening we got back in time. We went down to Punta Coco, which is the kind of the southwesternmost point of the island, where it's a great spot to watch the sunset. And so we got to walk around that point and watch an amazing sunset. And I had taken a bike. You guys had taken a cab, but you guys, after the sunset, you guys decided to walk back to town, which I was like, oh, it's a good walk back to town.
Yeah, I know.
But you guys did it. And, I biked back and I had to go turn my bike in. And then kind of our final night, we went and had an amazing dinner at Luma, which is a great restaurant right there next to the Casa Tortugas Hotel, which is a beautiful little boutique hotel. And then kind of as our final thing to do on the island, it was a full moon that night. And we went to this cool little bar that's right there on the beach called Selma. And we went for kind of a final drink. And you remember like all the servers and bartenders, they had painted their face for the full moon. They had all these kind of like, what was that, by the way? What was that face painting they did? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. Yeah, that was it's a bit odd, but yeah, whatever. You just got to go with it. When you come over here, you just got to go with it.
You're like hanging out with the natives or something. You know what I mean? And so what was funny is I was going to call it an early night. I remember like, man, long day, amazing day. And as we're about to walk out, you guys are like, this music is good. And there was like
Oh
this
man, the music was
DJ.
amazing. The music was just like, it was one of those kind of things where it gets under your skin and makes you get your ass up and just dance.
Yeah.
So it was yeah. It was hypnotic. I have to say it was
Yeah.
hypnotic. And the DJ knew how to like play the right vibe by just kind of feeling out the crowd and what kind of music it's it's actually an art form
It
to
is.
vibe to catch a vibe and make the tunes get people motivated to get up and dance. It's a very difficult thing,
Yeah.
with the not just the tonality, but also the rhythm of the music, the volume, the
Yeah.
tone, all of it. It's I'm all I'm saying is I don't know music speak, but all I know is that it feels good and it made you want to get up there and dance, and
Yeah.
that's the best thing.
And you guys started dancing and you guys were feeling it. I kind of hung out for a minute, but I'm like, I'm going to get back. I'm going to go to bed. And I'm like about 10 steps from walking out the door. I noticed that they're like starting to hold people up because they're trying to be COVID safe. So they're kind of not letting the place get too full. And I'm like, there are people trying to get in right now. My friends are back there dancing and I'm about to walk out. I'm like, what am I doing? And I turn around and I'm like, I'm going to stay. And you guys are like, yay. And then we're just like,
Yeah.
we just like kept dancing for another hour or so, and then ended up meeting more people. We met that really sweet girl from Ukraine and the other one from Venezuela. And,
Yeah.
I think there was some guy from Norway that I was talking to. And so anyway, it's just a cool place. I mean, and I think that, I don't know if it's this time, like you said earlier, it's almost like people are so looking for an escape out of this madness that we've been through in this last year.
Well, of course. I mean, it's like they've been in hibernation, and they're seeking, sun and activities and a sense of normalcy that has escaped them.
Yeah.
Human beings are social creatures, and they
Right.
need interaction. They need to get out of their caves, and interact,
Right.
or else they collapse. Also, you got to understand that the mental frustration and the gravity of the situation that has befallen so many people, that's a serious thing.
Yeah.
The mental strain. So any opportunity, any chance you get to free your mind a little bit,
Yeah.
people are going to take it. They're going to do it. I mean, it's human nature.
And I think you and I have always kind of been in tune with the fact that even during non-COVID
Well, you
times,
and I are obscenely social creatures, so I think we're on a different scale. We're on the way off the scale type thing. So for people like you, hibernation is not a good thing.
No. But I'm just saying,
like highly extroverted,
Well, I on a scale, I did a test and I'm about a 60% on a scale of, introvert to extrovert. But I was saying what I was kind of getting at is you and I understand the value of travel and escape and seeing different cultures and experiencing, whether it be being in touch with nature or just being immersed in a different culture, and how valuable that is in our lives. And so regardless of, what's going on in the rest of the world, whether, everything is normal or we're in a world pandemic, I mean, we still seek that on a pretty regular basis because that's what keeps us sane and that's what keeps us grounded. And I think that's what makes us better people,
Yeah.
Well, Kayvan.
Yes, sir.
It's been an amazing trip. I think we've got more in store in the future.
A lot more. This was just the beginning. This was this was just chapter one. For all your listeners out there who used to have DVDs, chapter one. There's like at least 26 more left.
Oh,
Welcome to chapter 1.
awesome. Well, brother, I wish you a continued awesome journey there in Mexico. I know you're there for at least another couple weeks.
A month.
It keeps changing. First you were there for a week. Now you're there 2 weeks, and now like a month.
Yeah, I'm here for question mark. Let's put it that way.
I told you when we were heading down there, I was like, Kayvan, I don't think you're gonna want to leave. Mexico there's something really special about it.
I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have great friends like yourself and Kira, and also I just found out another friend of mine, who I've known for over a decade, lives here now, and it's
awesome.
Incredible. I mean, just randomly, I found out through her Facebook that she lives here, and we know tonight we went out and had ceviche and a drink. Like, oh my God, what are you doing here? So it's like become this reunion place where people who have been, their lives have become discombobulated.
Right.
Have found a sanctuary in this place and have all descended upon here. And so It's nice. It's nice, and also to click with your friends and spend time with them and kind of slow the pace. So
awesome.
All good. Yeah.
Well, cheers, brother.
Thank you so much.
Wishing you continued joy, excitement on your journey, and until we meet again.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for having me on your show, and enjoyed it very much.
All
God
right.
bless.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chucky Radio. If you enjoyed this episode and are listening to it on one of the major podcast services, I'd really appreciate it if you went and rated this podcast. Chucky Radio Podcast is available on most major podcast services, from Apple Podcasts to Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, and many others. Music in the intro and outro by Joseph McDade. Thank you for listening, and peace out.